They almost destroyed Hollywood. These are the same women who have transformed the industry forever. These actresses weren't just playing a role. They caused scandals, challenged social norms, and redefined what it means to be a star. Accused of vulgarity, they have become unforgettable icons, daring pioneers who have broken all taboos. And wait until you find out what number 11 dared to do. You're not going to believe your eyes. Ready to dive into the dark side of Hollywood? Here are the Hollywood actresses of the Golden Age who were seen as extremely vulgar. 1. Mae West. This old Hollywood legend turned every scandal into cash. Here's how. Imagine this. A woman in the 1930s writes her own script, stars in it, and wears dresses so tight they could cut off your breath. Sounds daring, right? Now picture that same woman not only ignoring every rule Hollywood had, but laughing in the face of scandal. That was Mae West. Back then, the good girls of Hollywood were buttoned up in pearls and modest gowns. Mae West, she was rocking satin, smirking and delivering lines packed with double meanings. The type of lines that made parent groups lose their minds and church leaders demand censorship. Imagine that your joke getting banned by a Boston radio station for being too racy. That's how far Mae pushed the envelope. She didn't back down. Instead, she leaned in and turned the outrage into box office gold. She knew exactly what she was doing. More complaints, more headlines, more ticket sales. And Hollywood? They had no choice but to bow to her. They even invented the production code to control women like Mae. But as shocking as Mae was, it was just the beginning. What came next? Well, that's where things get crazy. 2. Jean Harlow. She wasn't just a movie star, she was a walking scandal, and she knew it. Picture this, a woman with platinum blonde hair that shimmered like ice strutting onto Hollywood screens and making men and women alike stop in their tracks. That was Jean Harlow. Long before Marilyn Monroe's white dress, Jean was the blonde bombshell. Harlow wasn't just playing roles, she was playing the game of fame like no one else. In Red-Headed Woman, she didn't just seduce men. She seduced the audience with lines so sharp they could cut through Hollywood's delicate reputation. She played a secretary who would stop at nothing to get her way, even slapping her boss's wife across the face and locking doors to lock in a new lover. Critics called it vulgar, but the public? They couldn't get enough. She was dubbed the girl who made sin shimmer. That's not just a nickname, it was her brand. But here's where it gets interesting. While critics were condemning her for every risque role, her off-screen persona was even more shocking. Jean would party till dawn, wearing backless gowns that showed just enough to keep the gossip columns buzzing. But what really blew everyone away was how she laughed it all off. When asked about being labeled vulgar, Harlow had this to say, "Is that today's word? Yesterday, they called me something worse. A Hollywood bad girl with a polite handshake." That contradiction? It's what made her unforgettable. But this wasn't just about scandal. Jean had a dark secret that even Hollywood couldn't ignore. 3. Theda Bara. In 1915, silent film star Theda Bara set the stage for what we now call the vamp. But she wasn't just playing a role, she was living it. Her breakout film, A Fool There Was, featured her lounging on a deck chair, eyes smoky and seductive, beckoning a married man to ruin his life. The audience? Shocked. Church leaders? Outraged. They called her a symbol of satanic temptation. But here's the kicker. While she played the ultimate femme fatale, off-screen, she was calm and reserved, completely at odds with the bold image Hollywood had carefully crafted for her. She would remain soft-spoken on set, but the studios weren't about to let that stop the myth they'd created. They staged photo shoots with occult props, painting her as a dark, dangerous siren, and people ate it up. She became so infamous that small-town movie theaters refused to show her films, fearing backlash from local religious communities. Yet, despite the controversy, fans couldn't stay away. They lined up outside theaters to get a glimpse of the woman who defined danger and seduction. Even when her popularity waned, her legacy lived on. Every femme fatale that followed borrowed something from Theda Bara, the slow smile, the hint of danger. But as the 1920s roared on, Hollywood shifted its focus to flappers, leaving Theda's brand of seduction behind. But the name vamp stuck. The word was forever etched into pop culture, all because one woman understood the power of suggestion without ever uttering a word. But as shocking as Theta's power was, it would take another star to turn seduction into an art form on screen. 4. Marlene Dietrich. She didn't just bend the rules, she broke them in half and strutted away. Marlene Dietrich wasn't just a movie star, she was a walking revolution. When she stepped onto the screen in Morocco, 1930, Hollywood wasn't prepared for what hit them. There she was, dressed in a tuxedo, kissing a woman on screen, shocking an entire nation. States tried to cut the scene, but Dietrich's allure was unstoppable. Her refusal to play by the rules didn't stop at her roles. Dietrich made waves by wearing men's clothing off-screen, challenging everything Hollywood and society thought they knew about gender. "Clothes have no sex," she famously said, and she was right. She wore tuxedos, top hats, and trousers, making bold fashion statements that redefined what it meant to be a woman in Hollywood. Critics called her immoral, indecent, but the public? They were mesmerized. But it wasn't just her wardrobe that drove them wild. It was her unapologetic confidence. Off-screen, Dietrich hosted legendary dinner parties where caviar sat next to sausages and high culture collided with sailor songs. She didn't just embrace her status as an outsider, she turned it into art. When the world saw her as immoral, Dietrich turned their judgment into her strength. Her impact didn't stop at the screen. During World War II, she performed for Allied troops, singing in a suit and making sure to challenge every traditional notion of womanhood. She outlasted the term vulgar by redefining it. Hollywood was left with no choice but to embrace her. 5. Jane Mansfield. Imagine a woman so bold, so fearless, that she turned wardrobe malfunctions into a career strategy. Jane Mansfield was Hollywood's walking headline, known for her curves, her daring wardrobe choices, and a reputation that wasn't just controversial, it was calculated. Jane didn't just make headlines, she created them. In 1957, while attending a dinner, the paparazzi caught a classic Mansfield moment. Her dress popped open, revealing a little more than intended. The press? They went wild. The public? They loved it. Suddenly, Jane wasn't just a star. She was the star. But she wasn't just about the headlines. She understood the power of image better than anyone else. Her film, The Girl Can't Help. It was designed to be the ultimate vehicle for her, complete with an iconic scene where she sachets past exploding milk bottles, a literal fizzy soda of a scene. She was sweet, loud, and impossible to ignore. Critics branded her vulgar, but Jane just smiled and kept selling it, and it didn't stop there. Jane's promotional stunts were legendary. She traveled with a heart-shaped bathtub, showed off her chihuahua, and laughed in the face of every bad taste label they tried to pin on her. But here's the twist. While she played the dumb blonde, on-screen, off-screen, she was reading classical philosophy, speaking 5 languages, and completely aware of her power. Despite her public persona, Jane's life ended tragically in a car accident in 1967. But her legacy as a queen of controversy and attention, it lived on. Jane Mansfield's boldness wasn't just a flash in the pan. It was the birth of a new kind of fame where controversy and charm went hand in hand. But Jane wasn't just shocking for her body. There was something even darker lurking beneath the surface. 6. Hedy Lamarr. She wasn't just a pretty face, she was the genius Hollywood tried to hide. Imagine this, the most beautiful woman in Hollywood, known for her stunning looks and seductive roles, secretly shaping the future. Hedy Lamarr's rise to fame was meteoric. She shocked Europe in Ecstasy, 1933, a film that included a controversial skinny-dipping scene. But the real scandal? The film was nearly seized by US Customs for its obscene content. The Vatican called it vulgar art. But that's only where the story begins. Hedy Lamarr wasn't content with just being the glamorous star. Behind the scenes, she was a pioneer, a woman who would go on to co-invent frequency-hopping technology, now used in Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. At the time, no one took her seriously as an inventor. They only saw her as the exotic beauty from Austria who dared to bare her skin on screen. But that couldn't have been further from the truth. Off-screen, Hetty was as sharp as they come, using her celebrity status to fund patents and push her inventions forward. Hollywood, however, couldn't shake the scandalous image she'd created. They saw her as an unladylike figure, more suited for seduction than science. But while the media fixated on her films and rumored affairs, Hetty was busy changing the world, quietly behind the scenes. And though she would later become one of the most underappreciated geniuses of her time, her legacy as a vulgar beauty never fully faded. But the real shock? Even after changing the world, Hollywood still couldn't stop labeling her as vulgar, and that label followed her until the very end. 7. Betty Page. She didn't just pose for pictures, she turned controversy into art. Betty Page was the face of the 1950s pinup, but she wasn't the demure, soft smile you'd expect. No, Betty's legacy was built on the bold, the taboo, and the controversial. Her most infamous photos weren't the usual cheesecake shots, but bondage themes. Photos that got politicians in a frenzy and sent shockwaves through conservative America. In 1957, a Senate hearing on obscenity included her photos. Yes, the same Betty Page who had once posed for low-budget photographers. The press couldn't stop talking about her, labeling her work as vulgar filth. But here's the thing, Betty didn't care. She treated modeling like any other job, not giving a second thought to the scandal she was creating. Off-screen, Betty was the complete opposite of her vulgar image. She volunteered at her local church, baked cookies for neighbors, and never once gave in to the pressures of the media. And when she suddenly disappeared from the public eye, rumors swirled about her, leaving modeling for religious reasons or mental health struggles. But decades later, the world rediscovered Betty Page, not as a scandalous pinup, but as an empowered icon of self-expression. But the real twist? When Betty's photos were revived in the 90s, they were no longer seen as vulgar. Now, they were symbols of empowerment. 8. Rita Hayworth. She didn't need to strip. She only needed to suggest it. Picture this, a single glove slowly slipping off Rita Hayworth's hand in Gilda, 1946, ignites one of the most infamous scenes in Hollywood history. It wasn't about what she did, it was about what she made you feel. In just a few seconds, Rita turned a simple movement into an eruption of desire, scandal, and controversy. Critics called it vulgar eroticism. Yet it wasn't the actual striptease that shocked them, it was the suggestion. The slow, seductive way she removed that glove in front of a captivated audience left enough to the imagination to drive the world wild. Her sensuality wasn't just physical, it was psychological. The entire scene was built on tension, and it became a symbol of the power of suggestion in Hollywood. But what really shocked people wasn't just the scene, it was the fact that Rita Hayworth, Hollywood's sweetheart, was just as complex as the roles she played. Off-screen, she was a shy, bookish woman, far from the provocative image crafted for her. She admitted, "Men go to bed with Gilda, but wake up with me," revealing the difference between her on-screen persona and her real-life self. Yet, Hollywood knew exactly what they were doing. They built every role around her slow, tantalizing movements, cementing her as the love goddess. But despite the fame, Rita grew frustrated with the label. She hated being reduced to just Gilda, a symbol of men's desires. She had a depth, a complexity, but to the world, she was only a glove away from scandal. But there was more to Rita than just that glove, and what happened behind the scenes would shock even her biggest fans. Finally, what's the real lesson here? The line between scandal and greatness is thinner than a glove. These women didn't just break the rules, they rewrote them. And every time Hollywood tried to label them vulgar, they only made them legends. So, what's the true cost of pushing boundaries? Well, history doesn't just remember the scandal. It remembers the women who dared to change the game. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe to follow the secrets of the biggest icons in history.